either live by the gun or you die by the sword.
Welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Weird, where we like to explore and pretend to be a little bit of archaeologists as we dig up old relics of childhood trauma back when this was commonplace amongst children's movies and was parent approved.
Not just parent approved, parent heavily advised.
Yes, except for mine apparently, but I'm Nicho.
And I'm Chris.
And today we are doing the 1988 animated film The Land Before Time.
You know it, you love it, you cry every time.
Yes, well, maybe. I don't know.
I cry every time Ducky shows up on screen, goddammit.
Yeah, we will get into that sad little bit of reality there.
Yep.
Because it's not a Spielberg children's movie if there's not something dark about every aspect of this thing.
Fact, and it's not a Don Bluth film if it doesn't make you emotionally upset.
Yes, I completely agree. And so, for those who don't know, The Land Before Time is a 1988 animated film about a group of orphan dinosaurs, well, mostly orphan dinosaurs, who are trying to find the Great Valley.
A single orphan dinosaur.
Nope. They're two.
Spike doesn't count, he's adopted.
Spike is orphaned.
I guess.
You have to be orphaned to be adopted.
That's not necessarily true. You can be disowned.
Yeah, it's kind of orphaned.
I guess.
Well, whatever.
I'm also not sure Spike qualifies as cognitive enough to be, like, aware of his circumstances. Spike's a special dinosaur.
He is very special. I
have a lot of questions about Spike.
He is a slow grower, as they say later on in the franchise.
Oh, boy.
Well, none of them grow at all.
Yeah, that's very true.
And so Land Before Time was directed by the oh-so-beloved Don Bluth.
Yes.
Well, the story was done by Judy Friedberg and Tony Geese, and the screenplay was by Stu Krieger.
Yes.
It stars Gabriel Damon, Cadence Houston, Judith Barcy, and Will Ryan.
Yes.
This was also the third credited movie Don Bluth had directed after The Secret of Nim and An American Tail.
This one was like right after American Tail. They got done with that one, started on this bad boy.
Yes, and I have a little bit of that in the episode.
I love American Tail, but not necessarily the first one.
Yeah, there's some bit to that, and someday we will have to do the American Tail franchise. So.
We will, mostly because everyone has forgotten about the nightmare show that is the end of that first one, which explains a lot about this movie, really. Oh,
it does. And while I personally am not familiar with Krieger's work, or before The Land Before Time, Friedberg and Geese had worked on An American Tail as well as some Sesame Street bits.
Yes, being a writer for Sesame Street is kind of like being a comedian on Saturday Night Live. Like, eventually just about everybody's at least been on or featured at some point. Yeah,
actually, technically, yes, because I do remember seeing something about Katy Perry and people being upset because I've seen the photo, she was not that exposed.
Yeah.
They were just upset because she's got nice titties.
How dare.
How dare a children's show have a voluptuous woman?
How dare they have lots of things, including a homeless bird who lives in a bunch of doors in the corner on an alley.
And a trash can monster.
His house is nice though, and he has a pet worm.
I forget that he
There's like a whole lore.
I know. I forget that there's Oscar and Grouchland.
There is Oscar and Grouchland, a terrible movie. I loved it dearly.
I do have a desire to go down bad children's movies.
You let me know when you're ready.
Oh, I am ready, just so that way I can annoy our friends who have children.
Yes.
I have to do it, though, at a point where
the children will latch on to the movie and make them watch it?
Yes, yeah. Exactly. I do plan at some point to introduce them to the Croods.
Yes.
I have not seen the Croods yet.
I love the Croods.
But my goal is to introduce them to Cage at a young age.
The Croods is a good one. Yeah. The line about, I can't see my feet anymore, hilarious every time.
Actually, I've got it. Teen Titans Go to the Movies.
That's a good one. I plan on corrupting the youngest in our group with the Lego movie in the near future.
Everything will be awesome.
Everything will be awesome.
They are gonna hate us so much. Also, a little bit of note, this is the only movie Don Bluth did in the 80s that did not have Dom DeLuise.
Yes.
As he decided to do Oliver Company instead.
Fair. That movie's also a delight.
And for those who are not familiar with Dom DeLuise...
You just don't realize it.
He is Pizza the Hut.
Yes. Yes, he is.
And he is also in my still cardinal sin for movie watchers everywhere. I still have not seen Robin Hood Men in Tights.
It hurts me every time you say that.
I know.
As one of my favorite movies of all time, starring one of my favorite actors of all times, it physically hurts me.
At some point, if I do not watch it, we will have to schedule it for the last half of year 4 of the podcast.
Agreed. I named my pet rabbit after the actor who stars in that.
Did you?
Yes. Ivan Simon Carey Ewells. It's the same man who plays Wesley.
Huh.
I love him dearly. He's one of my favorite actors.
He is a very good actor. I do like him, and I forget that he's also Dr. Gordon in the Saw franchise.
Yes, he is!
I did not realize that that's what you named your new rabbit after.
That is exactly who I named it after. Specifically the Robin Hood Men in Tights version of him.
My cats kind of got named on their own, so I didn't have much of a say. But Charlie's perfect for what his name.
He is. He's got a little mustache.
He's an asshole.
Yeah. A little bit.
And for this movie, there's really not a whole lot. There's enough on it out there, but there's not a whole lot.
No.
Partly because I feel this one's been a little bit forgotten.
It quickly got turned into a franchise that people stopped watching.
Did not quickly, because there was like a 5-7 year gap between this one and the next one in the franchise, because I and my brother were born by the next movie, or one of my brothers was born by the time the second movie in this franchise came out. But there's no special features. I have the entire 14 movie collection, and I have seen them all. Hey, you might be a cool podcast, but you're not as cool as watching all 14 Land Before Times in like a week time frame.
Hell yeah.
So I am a little bit of a Land Before Time snob at this point.
Good. Welcome to my world.
But there's no special features really. I mean, there's single. Here's the thing. So the DVD has special features for sing-along in the first one.
Yes.
The first one has no musical numbers whatsoever.
It is the only non-musical out of all of them.
Exactly. And it annoys me a little bit because this is a relatively well-known children's movie.
And the thing that really just giggles me to no extent is this first one's tone and relevance in our culture is so different than all of the others.
Oh yeah.
Yes. But it's still a quintessential Don Bluth film.
Yes.
Which is partially why I wanted to go over this one and not some of his other large works.
Yes.
Because while Secret of NIMH is fantastic and a cult classic, there's a lot to talk about there with like the whole movie really. And its background and its time and place in history.
I think that's the one that you showed me. We watched it over like a holiday or something.
I don't think I've made you watch Secret of NIMH.
Is that the one with the weird princess one?
No. This is the one about a mouse.
I don't think I've seen Secret. Oh,
you would like
I'm
Secret
thinking
of
about
NIMH.
the other one with the fairy princess and Prince Dickhead.
Prince Dickhead does not narrow it down much.
Prince Dickhead is the first one that we called Dickhead because we watched it right before we were going to do our Anastasia episode way back in the day.
Yes, because he did do Anastasia, and there's a lot to talk about there with his relationship to Disney and what that looked like.
Yeah. So, yes, this is technically our second Don Bluth movie we're doing.
Yes.
But yeah, so no special features. Most of my information came from Wikipedia and little things on IMDb and other random places I could find that are less than reputable.
There's a lot of hearsay around this movie.
Yes.
Which is part of the joy around this, because everyone loves it, everyone has seen it, and nobody other than like the 2 tidbits of fact around some of the actors and actresses, there's nothing to go on.
No,
it's a beautiful scenario.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where you kind of have to do a little bit of digging yourself.
Yes.
Or proposing of ideas. So, So it's a little bit, this episode is going to be a little bit about our conjectures and also just our remembrance of certain aspects and returning to this movie after probably at least 10, 15 years since either of us last saw it.
For you. I watch this movie regularly.
Jesus Christ.
Don't doubt me. But I would... Part of the reason why I come back to this movie, though, is this is one of the few kids' movies that I can see two sides of an argument.
Mm-hmm.
Where, especially with kids' movies, I think good kids' movies are always something that can also be watched by adults.
Yeah.
I think that's part of, like, being a good kids' movie is that whoever brings the kid to the theater has to be able to endure whatever we're about to watch.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be for every adult, like Shrek. There are some adults, that's perfect humor. And then there are others, like my poor mother, who suffered through that sucker.
Well, speaking of mothers, my mother does not care for this movie. At least she doesn't remember caring for it at the time.
And I can understand that. And that's part of what I want to go through as we revisit this film. Because this is one of those movies where our entire generation, this like sparked an obsession with dinosaurs for our generation.
I'll get into it at the end.
But no one was
me.
truly obsessed with dinosaurs. We were all obsessed with like the visuals that this movie created around dinosaurs.
My first career choice as a kid, I wanted to be a paleontologist.
I did too, but I think for different reasons than you.
I mean, I solely wanted to, but I'll get into that towards the end because this movie has a weird place in my film watching history.
Yes.
And just my history as a child. And it also lends into like how, because I've been doing a lot of looking back at my childhood and my history of movies, especially with one of the episodes we have coming later this year.
Yes.
And just some of my parents' choices and what they let me watch. And oddly enough, I started getting into this podcast called Who Let You Watch That?
Uh-huh.
And their entire shtick is about going back and watching these old movies from the 80s and 90s that they grew up on and like how were they allowed to watch that and would they let their kids watch it.
And this is, I think, a very good example of that, because I can understand your mother's reservations on promoting this to you as a kid. But at the same time, I would argue that this movie is still solid, and I'm going to prove it.
Just wait. My mom's reservations are probably not what you think. I
love that about your mother. Never let me know what her next move is going to be.
She tried so hard to shelter us as kids that I think... I know she feels bad that she's let us watch some stuff too early. Mm-hmm. And that it's, unfortunately, in her mind a little bit, framed a good chunk of my life.
I think my mother was glad that Lion King came out when it did, because that diverted me from being obsessed with dinosaurs to obsessed with lions very quickly.
I mean, okay, so my obsession with dinosaurs was up until, like, middle school, like 5th or 6th grade, when I switched and wanted to be a, pediatrician.
See, I grew up going to Yellowstone regularly, so when I wanted to be a paleontologist, I didn't imagine digging up dinosaurs. For me, that never, like, connection was made. I thought you dug up mammoths. Because there's a ton of mammoth digs out in the Dakotas area.
Yeah.
And of course, being the nerdy family we are, we stopped at all of them. And so I assumed that that's what you did as a paleontologist, was dig up mammoth bones. And I was like, fuck yeah, I want to do that shit. And I still regret not being a mammoth paleontologist.
I took a archaeology class in college, and I'm glad I did not go down that route. Just one, I can't tell the difference between a lot of colors when they're next to each other.
That would be a problem.
Yeah, that was kind of a big changer in that, and just...
That would be problematic. But you could have licked the science.
No.
That's how you know if something's something. You lick it.
I guess. I mean, that is.
And just think, you could have imagine your life now and how comfy and cozy you are in your house, watching movies and playing video games. You could have been outside with a little small brush, dusting things.
I'm completely comfortable with my troglodyte lifestyle. And so, before we get into the movie, what are we drinking today, Chris?
Well, as much as I like leaves. I do not want to just eat leaves. So we have leaf water.
Yes, hot leaf or lukewarm leaf water.
Lukewarm leaf water, because I'm late. My bad.
No, I brewed this at like 4.
Very strong lukewarm leaf water.
It's mint though, so
good.
I like strong mint tea. So.
I also enjoy a strong tea.
Good. Cheers.
Cheers. It's getting close to mouthwashy.
Is it?
A little bit.
Yeah.
At least there's no alcohol in it.
That
would put it into the mouthwash range.
I don't have mint alcohol right now, so
just a splash of vodka and that's mouthwash.
I do actually have vodka.
I'm not asking for any.
I mean, if you want. And so we open on the non-Russian word for water, yes. Actual water.
Yes.
And some kind of dinosaur that looks like Kermit and a goldfish got it on.
Yes. I love it. It's so muppety.
It is so weird.
From the beginning, this movie does the most perfect job of balancing that childlike obsession of what a dinosaur might be with also just enough correctness about dinosaurs for the nerdy child to be like, that one's a pterodactyl.
Yeah, continuing the trajectory of them mixing dinosaurs from different eras together.
Oh yeah, no, it's all wrong, but I love it.
Yeah, no, and I that's the thing. Going back and rewatching this, like everything is so wrinkly.
They are so squishy.
Yeah,
but I like it.
Actually, this is good. This might ruin it for some. They remind me of the ball sack looking golem.
Yes.
Yeah.
They remind me of what I imagine the Tanuki from the Studio Ghibli movie must feel like. It's real squishy.
But they're I don't know. I bet Tanuki they might have coarse fur.
I just imagine that the Tanuki feel very similar to whatever Littlefoot's mother's neck is made out of.
Oh yeah. But we open as we're introduced that this is a Lucas Spielberg movie.
We did get the name put on there.
Yep, the big names. And the Kermit goldfish is trying to eat some type of shrimp, but also gets eaten by himself as the title cards appear of The Land Before Time.
And this part reminisces real hard on that Fantasia dinosaur sort of vibe, which is hilarious because I found a source saying that that's kind of what the Don Bluth studio was hoping for.
I'll get into that in just a little bit.
The rest of this has none of that vibe, but the opening does.
No. And so we get some sea turtles, but why dinosaurs? Well,
why not?
During production of An American Tail, Bluth and Spielberg talked about the next movie, and they wanted to do something like Bambi, but with dinosaurs.
They succeeded. This one's sadder, damn it.
Oh yeah, it makes a lot more sense as it goes along, but, I mean, here's the thing. I know you will remember a lot more, but I remember fuck all about Bambi.
I fucking loved Bambi.
The only things I remember are his mom dies, his dad's a dick, and his best friend's a skunk who gets Twitter pated with another skunk.
Yes, there's also a rabbit.
Thumper.
Yes. Have you seen the second one?
I knew it existed. I have not seen it.
Visually, not that bad. Story-wise, just really solidifies that his dad is in fact an ass.
I mean, he is a deer, and every deer I have ever met is an ass.
Yeah. They did have a real deer that this Disney people corralled, and then they watched it frolic in the yard so that they could draw him.
It is that old of a Disney movie that they would do that.
That's exactly what they did. They had a deer so they could draw the deer. I loved that fucking movie. And so the similarities between Bambi and this one are, once you know about it, is really hard to ignore.
Well, yeah, even me who hasn't seen Bambi in a long time and doesn't remember most of it.
A lot of the almost watercolory landscaping, the lighting play really hits hard, where it's Bambi's makes sense. Light through trees, forests.
Do they change full color palettes like Land Before Time does?
At parts, yeah. At parts, yes. I would say Land Before Time throws a little heavy-hitty for the palette changing, mostly because, at least with Bambi, there's the play of storms and trees and seasons. There's no seasons in Land Before Time, there's only death.
Yes, pretty much.
And then the end.
Which, I mean, is technically also death.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also, this is where Krieger was brought in, because Freudberg and Geese wrote an initial draft, but they thought it was too juvenile.
So they just really ramped it up, didn't they?
Yeah,
they did. We went all the way to racism and moms dying.
Oh, yeah, because right from the opening, we get the setting of the dinosaurs, where we have a good establishment of both sides of the struggle, the sharp-tooths versus the leaf eaters.
Yes.
They
do go in herds.
Yes, the world is ruled by the leaf, and dinosaurs must quest for the dinosaur land of milk and honey.
It is it's a little biblical.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's children's stories. Yeah. Like, everything's got to be a little bit.
Yeah, sets them up as nomadic. Well, I know Bluth is also a very devout Christian, so that leaks into a lot of his stories.
And someday we will get around to the monstrosity that was Disney's Dinosaur.
I forget about that movie.
They're trying to let people forget, but they also have the ride that like people love, so like nobody's forgotten about it.
Yeah, because it was part of that big
Dinosaur
tree thing that they were doing too.
Yeah, because they removed dragons and put dinosaurs in.
Oh, is that why they added that? Okay.
And then they also have Dino Land, which is a whole subject. We'll get into it. We'll get into when we do that movie. But the setting of this in the saddest part of dinosaur history was a real bold move. But unlike a lot of other movies, Dinosaur included, this is one of the only ones that I feel like does it well. And I'm going to say that with well being an asterisk, because the dinosaurs are squishy, the world is crumbly, the rocks are real soft.
Yeah, I gotta think, I don't know a whole lot of like old set movies. Like, the only ones I can think of are that dinosaur movie, vaguely remember Dinotopia.
Oh, Dinotopia.
And a little bit after this, The Creatures the World Forgot, which I think this is like the third episode in a row I've brought up that stupid movie.
Yes. Yeah.
We'll do a short on that one at some point.
There's only really two settings for dinosaurs in like dinosaur, especially kids-based dinosaur movies. There's The End of Times, which is difficult to do well. I would argue most of them do it badly.
Yeah.
Or we remove the dinosaurs from The End of Times entirely and put them in New York City.
Yeah, you're thinking of Look Who's Back.
Yeah, I hate that movie.
I love that movie. That was like a staple of my childhood.
It makes hot dogs so unappetizing. I love the villain. I love how he dies by crow. I cannot look at them eat hot dogs. I'm sorry. It's so gross.
I get that. But we do have the setup that these are a nomadic people.
Yeah, I mean, Don Bluth's studio treats them as races.
Yeah.
For the entirety of this. So, like, they knew what they were doing. Yeah. They did it on purpose.
Which is kind of nice, but at the same time, it kind of gets lost in the whole scheme of it all.
If it wasn't for Sarah, yeah, they would have all gotten lost.
Yeah. And we get a little nod to small animals.
It's nicely detailed.
Yeah.
Like, we have our main group of dinosaurs, right? Like, we have the ones that every kid knows and loves. But we do get, like, a sprinkling of other animals and, like, versions of dinosaur-esque things.
Yeah.
That are nice to at least, like, round out the world.
Yeah, the first mammal, because we get a little bit here and there, because the first dinosaur we're actually introduced is to who we find out later is Ducky, who is portrayed by Judith Barcy, who we'll discuss at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And then right after that, we're introduced to Sarah, who is portrayed by Candace Houston and looks like something out of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game.
Yeah, that is accurate.
Yeah.
I do like the effort that went into all of the baby dinosaurs designs, because there is some amount put into thinking up what a baby three-horn would look like. Like, she's not just a scaled-down version of the adults. Like, she's a different color.
Yeah. And
B, like, she doesn't have the full nose horn. She's missing, like, the side horny bits. Like, she's definitely like a infantized version as opposed to just like a small version.
Yeah, they all are. And that is a good touch to that, because I think that is an issue with a lot of these older movies, is that they make everything look like a miniature version of the adults, which, I mean, if we look at like alligators and crocodiles, the babies are kind of cute.
Yeah, the babies are cute. That's why people have them as pets.
And then forget that these things grow up to be giant monsters.
Or those weird people who like just make half their house into a pool for their crocodile pet.
Yeah.
There's a special place in Florida for those people.
That just feels like all of Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Florida listeners.
I love you dearly. Send me pictures of your pet crocodiles.
I'm in if you want to. We got an email for that. But finally, we do get introduced to Littlefoot. Oh, by the way, this whole bit's narrated.
Yes.
Like, just,
with a wonderful narration.
And I'll get into him in just a wee bit.
His voice is one of the delights of this movie.
Yeah, he has a very smoky deepness to it. That
I think he really established what a narrator voice was supposed to sound like to us as children, because from this point on, if your narrator doesn't kind of sound like this man, it's not the correct narrator for me. Yeah,
he has a very Mike Rowe meets Johnny Cash kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
But finally we're introduced to Littlefoot, who's portrayed by Gabriel Damon through this weird, like, Rube Goldberg hatching method.
Yeah, it's a little strange.
And we get really our first dark bits, because he's bouncing on bones, and there's so much little bits of death through this entire movie.
This child is well shaken before he is hatched.
He's
He's well shaken.
That explains maybe a bit.
Yeah.
Because, like, and then he hatches, and he's just so wrinkly, too.
He's very squishy.
But he's like that through the whole movie.
They're all like that through the whole movie.
Yeah.
But I kind of like the, like, dedication to, like, you know what? If we're gonna go wrinkly and soft, we're gonna go all the way. Yeah. I like that, because then at least everyone's consistently squishy.
Yeah, well, and that's one thing about this movie, too, in, like, the consistency of it, that it is... Everything is so well detailed in the background.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I noticed this when I was designing the logo for this episode, that Don Bluth, at least in this movie, doesn't use a lot of shading for the dinosaurs. Everything else in the background has shading, but the dinosaurs don't. Because this has that old school animation style feel where you're ignoring the shading because it's too much to do for this budget of a movie. And it
would have looked odd.
Yeah.
Like, even now, even going back after all these years, this, especially for Don Bluth's films, who unfortunately do have a tendency to have, like, a tint to them, they have an age to them. With the exception, maybe, of Anastasia, but I don't know, there's some eyeball problems happening in there.
But Anastasia is definitely more recent, and
it's completely different for his style.
Yeah.
Which was kind of part of the whole thing to it.
Well, in this movie, at the end of this, I'll explain a little bit about, like, how some of this movie's development influenced his current lack of works, basically.
Yes.
Because he did hit hard. Like, Secret of Nim was, like, 86. 5-0 Goes West was 87. Or, no. It was, like, 84, 86, and 88. So, like he had a movie every other year, basically, for a decade.
Yeah, and, like, all of his original works are now cult classics.
I've only seen, like, 2 of his classic works, so I don't know.
You would love Secret of Nim. Science experiments. You would like it. It's very good.
I'll have to give it a go. I am getting into that rabbit hole just because as these kids get older...
That's a good one. If you want to traumatize them without their parents realizing it, Secret of Nim's a good one. Because most parents have forgotten about it.
I have already said, and I've told multiple people this, I will ask permission from the parents before having them watch it.
Say that it's on Disney Plus. Because it is.
I know it is, but that doesn't stop a lot of things that's on Disney Plus.
They have added a warning to Aladdin, goddammit.
What?
Yeah, the original Aladdin now has a little warning being like, by the way, this... there's some parts in here that maybe aren't Disney anymore. Don't worry about it.
The penis statue thing? Or...
I don't think that... I think they have very elegantly airbrushed the penis castle out of Disney.
Huh. Bring back the old Disney.
I miss old Disney's random penises.
Disgruntled employees. But also we get a little bit of a weird point. So everyone gathers around Littlefoot like he's some dinosaur messiah, and then shortly after this, we go right into the dinosaur racism, and we don't talk to this group whole kind of shtick. It's like, I don't...
Okay, there is a very small, quick sentence announcing that he was the only one born for his herd.
Oh, so it's like the spectacle of like, oh, it's like the Truman Show for dinosaurs.
Yes. Yeah. He's the last hope for his herd is like the one sentence that you're given on why he is the special baby.
Well, we're screwed because we
immediately lose the special baby.
No, his herd is screwed because he is the only one. We're just introduced to his grandparents and his mother.
Okay, I think when this movie says herd, they mean it very literally. I think there are probably other of his species, but for his herd, he's it.
Yeah, I mean, we do see other of his species in the movie.
Yeah.
And then quickly forget about them in the rest of this, or most of the sequels.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that is quickly...
There's a lot of stuff that is just extra lore from the sequels.
And so from here we have a little bit of a time jump where they're setting out for the Great Valley, and it's explaining it to the audience as well as Littlefoot, or explaining it through Littlefoot.
Yes.
Which I do, there are parts I like, because there's a nice touch of thorns growing around the tree stars and everything in the background. This land is dying, obviously.
It's getting real crusty.
And this is the part we are very specifically told that the Great Valley is the dinosaur promised land, because it's the promised land for the leaf eaters because there's no sharp tooths and it's full of green stuff. Which I don't think they actually called... I think in this full movie they call... No, there is one line. For the most part, they call everything like tree stars, but there's a little bit where they do call it green foods.
Yes. I do like the creative use of terminology throughout the movie.
Yes, it feels very... what's that movie? It's not Atlas. Is it Atlas Shrugged?
Maybe.
No, it's Cloud Atlas.
There we go.
True.
There we go.
Yeah, it feels very much like that era, or that feel to it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I forgot that I did write in the outline I have Creatures the World Forgot. But, and it does relate to this a little bit, because this movie, they wanted, Bluth and Spielberg had talked about making it a movie without dialogue, very much like a part of Fantasia.
Which explains the intro.
Mm-hmm. But they wanted it to be catered to children, so that's why they started adding character and actual dialogue, which, after watching Creatures of the World Forgot, I think it was the right choice all around instead. As
someone who is a live hard, die fast lover of the Fantasia idea and the movies, I am the first to admit that it is not a good idea.
No.
Much like birthday cake Oreos. Sounds good on paper. Only a very small handful of people are going to that's gonna be their favorite thing.
The fuck is that?
It's like an Oreo, but it's birthday cake flavor.
Is it new?
I don't know. It's one of my favorites, but every time it comes out, they immediately get rid of it.
I have never heard of a birthday cake Oreo.
It's got little sprinkles in it.
Sounds awful.
You would hate it.
I would hate it.
And this is why Fantasia was a bad idea. Because as much as I love it, a full feature-length movie where it's no talking for kids about dinosaurs slowly dying is not a good idea.
No, I agree.
And this movie is already on the verge of A, too sad, and too scary.
Yeah, and we are way past that era where people are not just mesmerized by, oh, that picture's moving.
Yes, yeah, we're long past Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs level of we will let the children be terrified, it's fine.
Yeah, we're about 5 or 6 years out from Jurassic Park at this point.
Which was, for most people, yeah, children can watch this. Shit, we let children watch this.
It's a hint at what's to come.
Yes.
And so, in this bit, Littlefoot meets Sarah, who is trying to eat a bug.
Fuck you, Sarah.
And while they try and play, her dad's the bigger dick.
Oh, her dad, and this is one of the few times I'm going to really hone in on the outside lore of it. I appreciate that Sarah's dad is a dick all the time.
Yeah.
In all the other movies, Sarah's dad is still an ass.
Ass for different reasons, though.
But he's still an ass.
Oh, yeah. But this is where we get the explanation of dinosaur racism that
we don't talk to anybody else.
Three horns do not associate with long necks, and the other tribes of dinosaurs, as they also mentioned that like they don't talk to the big mouths, the spiked tails, and the flyers. They all have their own tribes.
Yes.
And I mean,
sure, why not?
Yeah, and we get this little bit of like, well, what's a long neck? Well, we're long necks, Littlefoot.
Okay. While I understand that it feels a little awkward, I will say that for a movie where that is like the thing to overcome other than death and like parent sadness, this isn't the worst way to introduce the concept of like differences to kids.
No, not at all.
It is heavy-handed, but not like hurting me. It just is like straightforward and blunt, and I'll take it.
Yeah. No, and I mean, as someone who is very straightforward and blunt, I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is also the part where we learn about the path to the Great Valley is past the mountain that looks like a long neck, because of course it is.
Yeah.
And also, it's just behind the mountains that burn.
I will say that during this time of children's movies, especially ones where like the main characters are animals of some kind, whether that's bats, cats, or dinosaurs.
Yeah.
The quest with various stupid landmarks was kind of a thing.
Yeah, and I mean it still is. I mean with RPGs and stuff, there's always like
at this point, it does feel like most people have reached a point where it's almost a joke for like to be like, all right, do you see the bridge?
Yeah, we've definitely taken more of like a Lord of the Rings route where everyone's like, oh, let's go to Osgiliath. And it's like, everyone knows where Osgiliath is.
Yeah. Back when this movie, and like this movie I would argue like really like was before it became too much. But the idea of like, yes, you must go past the special tree, turn left at the fountain of blah, 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 and then make it to the special rock. It's
very fairy tale-like in that regard. And it also kind of, speaking of like dark children's movies, there's this era from the, and I want to do a little bit of diving into it because it's something that Who Let You Watch That brought up that I wasn't fully aware of, but I've had other thoughts about this rough topic as well. But they brought up that until like the 80s, there wasn't really like movies directed towards children.
Yes.
But then me exploring a lot of these classic children's movies that I didn't watch as a kid, specifically like Gremlins, E.T., and like Goonies.
The Goonies.
I didn't see any of these fully until I was an adult. And even then, like, I hadn't seen a good chunk of them. Like, and granted, Gremlins isn't really a kid's movie, but
it was when it came out, though.
A lot of people thought it was.
That was the joy of the 80s.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. There's this era in the 80s to, I want to say, the mid to late 90s, where a lot of children's movies were a lot darker.
Yes.
And
yes, they were.
Part of that is mainly through the ones I mentioned were a big bunch of Spielberg movies.
We have a lot to thank the man for.
Yeah. But when it comes to, like, there's this, I want to do a rabbit hole at some point, and maybe I'll do a solo rant about it, or we'll do a full spotlight episode, you and me talking about it. Just going down, like, this exploration of this darker era for kids movies, because we really don't see that nowadays, in my opinion.
We are getting back to it.
Are we?
Yes, because we had the 80s where there wasn't really like true kids movies. There was, however, kids cartoons. And so people knew what a kids cartoon looked like, what it should look like, and knew that was safe to just put on and hope for the best.
Yeah, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Ed, Edd and Eddy.
Those were all 90s.
Yeah, wait, so when was Rocko's Modern Life?
Early 90s, I believe.
Early 90s, okay. It's like that and like Doug were some of the early ones I remember that were like kind of really questionable.
But when those movies were coming, when those TV shows were out, and like we all were familiar with how like raunchy they all were, even though we were just like freely allowed to watch those.
Yeah.
The movies were taking a different turn and all being very like soft, like almost focused in on like love and family oriented as opposed to like journeys and quests like the 80s were.
Okay.
And now we're kind of all coming back around to this idea of like, okay, well, we can have kids movies that aren't going to scar us like Gremlins did, but we also don't need dumb fluff movies anymore.
Yeah, no, and I'm curious to see how that turns out then, because I mean, we do go through these ebbs and flows like that where...
I don't think we're ever going to get back to Spielberg directing children's films level of movie. But we have seen this enhanced awareness when writing kids' movies that most of the people who are paying money for kids' movies aren't kids.
Yeah, I mean, the most recent one I can think of that my parents saw that wasn't like a kids movie, but it was well, I mean, it was a kids movie, but it was dark for a kids movie. The House with the Clock in the Walls.
Exactly.
Still haven't seen that one yet. I know you did a glitter review.
Love it. There and like it's getting back to that like almost Addams Family-esque where like kids like dark shit.
But it's directed by Eli Roth, who's a horror fan. Rob Zombie's directing a PG version of The Munsters,
which I'm excited for. I loved The Munsters.
I'm very curious. I've seen a chunk of The Munsters and I like them.
Yes, I love The Munsters, and I think that they will be a nice balance to the Addams Family dominated dark zone. Because while I love the Addams Family, the new version is not my thing.
No, and I've seen little snips of the new Addams Family. It's just like
it's cute, but like it's not it.
It's aesthetically goth, and it's not like old school.
It reminds me too much of the old like kids goth-esque books where it's like, oh, the dark and spooky.
It's the goth kids from South Park.
Yeah. Which don't get me wrong, I love it, but it's not. It's not that pure form that it once was.
Oh yeah, no, I'll have to do some digging. I mean,
and like I think people are realizing that there's like a balance that you can have where you can have dark and spooky without being traumatizing your small child.
Yeah, like well, actually, I can't say this one. I can't say it didn't traumatize kids. Scooby-Doo Zombie Island
did traumatize people.
Yes,
but led on to the other Scooby-Doo movies that then people were not traumatized by, and led to a lifelong obsession with the Wicked Sisters.
Yeah, I still haven't got to the Wicked Sisters.
The Hex Girls are the greatest fake band of all time.
That might be the next franchise I just start buying the kids' movies for, is the Scooby-Doo movies.
I recommend starting with the one starring John Cena.
What?
Yeah. To be honest, the one that you would actually like is the new one with Courage the Cowardly Dog. But I prefer the John Cena one.
Okay,
that is a different episode, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is. But it is time for Littlefoot to bed down, but...
And his squishy mom's neck.
That's at the very beginning.
She's so soft.
He's too old for that point. He beds in her neck at like the very beginning when everyone's gathered around the Messiah dinosaur.
Yes. Oh, she's so soft.
Yeah. I mean...
like Play-Doh.
Yeah. I mean, Hobbs is a very firm chunky.
Yeah, she's had time to really pack it on.
But he decides to chase a hopper that he sees in a bubbling pool of stuff.
Don't question it.
But he ends up running into Sarah, and they're just kind of going at it, like Sarah's being the dick, and Littlefoot's like, "Oh, but it's my." Actually, no, they're both being dicks.
They're being children to each other, which I appreciate.
They've claimed this frog.
Yes, this poor frog is going to get owned.
But a shadow looms. And oh no, it's a Sharptooth.
I will say, Sharptooth in this movie is legit scary.
So this is the part that really scared me as a kid. The
chase scene.
The thorny chase scene. It reminded me a little bit, when I got a little bit older, of the vine bit in The Emperor's New Groove.
Exactly, where it's like claustrophobic and also the chomping jaws, which apparently they had to take out scenes because they were like, it was too spooky. And I mean, we're already at top spook, so...
Yeah, for a kid, this is a really dark moment. Like, and it's not even like, it doesn't... It's not that point where it's like, it's far enough away where you're hopeful. It's like, this thing is right up on them.
Yeah, like, chomp chomp coming to get you, son.
Yeah. But Littlefoot's mother is to the rescue, and she kicks ass.
I appreciate, though, that throughout the battle of Littlefoot's mother, the studio, while they had to remove blood, because, like, they were aiming for that G rating.
Yeah.
They did not shy away from showing Littlefoot's mother being ripped apart like little fleshy candy.
Her entire squishy back.
Her squishy back.
Torn.
Yes. And so, like, yeah, no blood, because, you know, that would have been a no-no even back then.
Yeah.
But they were like, this movie, unlike Lion King, which has a similar vibe with the whole, like, let's kill our mom, or kill our dad in Lion King's, do not bring up that movie.
Hey, it is it is the era before. I forget how old Watership Down is.
Watership Down is old. It has been revived because there's a generation who wasn't traumatized by that fucking movie.
I didn't see Watership Down. This is another one of the, like, I didn't watch a lot of kids movies until I was an adult, and Watership Down was one of them because
Watership Down was available at the library, and my poor mother rented that sucker.
My
because it had a bunny on the front.
My big childhood movie that I remember, like kid movie, was Runaway Ralph.
Oh, that's a good one. I have the book. It's so good.
I didn't know it was a book.
It was a book first. It's an adorable book.
Oh, actually, that one's also a really weird one because it's a taxidermy mouse too.
Yeah.
The 80s and 90s was a weird time for kids movies.
This is the gold mine. Gold mine of kids movies.
But yes, they don't show blood, and I appreciate at least they show a little violence.
They do. And, like, this, for a kids movie, this is what set this movie apart for me from a lot of the Disney ones where we're just killing parents left and right. Is like, yeah, seeing Simba's dad fall, terribly sad. He looks fine at the end. Not gonna lie, for being run over by a herd of wildebeest, he looked fine.
And also, it's that thing that we've harped on a little bit in a couple episodes, where it's seeing the after effect of everything.
Yes.
Instead of this one, we see nothing's left up to the imagination. We're seeing the horror in all its.
Yes.
Well, not all of it, but in enough of its childhood
accepted form.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, why for a lot of people, this one hits harder.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, the other Disney deaths, very sad. Will shed a tear. This one, to this day, will make everyone bawl. Yeah.
Yeah, no, well, we're about to get to that bit. Because the Sharptooth is pushed down a cliff as an earth shake begins.
I like the earth shake. It is dramatic as fuck.
Yes, and now we have this, like, odd interjection of the narrator explaining the continental clashes, where, like, it's this weird combination of having to explain to the kids what's happening, who might not have known about geography at this point, or, like, plate tectonics.
Yes.
So it falls into, like, this weird...
almost educational.
Yeah, weird edutainment area where...
I would argue that this movie, while not trying to be, did manage to hit a sweet spot in edutainment. Yeah,
it really did, because I remember this stuff being played at, like, my Christian schools.
Yes, same. Which was hilarious,
like,
because...
Tales.
Yes, which was hilarious, too, because I had multiple parents in my weird little Christian circle that we had who weren't allowed dinosaurs, because, and I quote from them, dinosaurs weren't real. But this movie was allowed. Harry Potter? No, absolutely not. Land Before Time? Yes, that's fine.
Because it's pure fantasy and there's no magic.
It was the no magic thing that I think got it. Also, they're all dinosaurs. Like, there's no people. Yeah. Didn't stop any of my friends from being absolutely obsessed with dinosaurs after that, including the kid who wasn't allowed to believe in them. But that, like... Yeah, this movie, like, weirdly managed to become edutainment. Yeah. Because we even watched it in school, I think.
I think I did too, because I know, so when I was rewatching all 14 of these movies...
the other ones were not allowed in school.
I remember seeing some of the other ones in school, because I was looking through it, because I think we only own the first one on VHS.
Yeah, we definitely own the first one.
But we don't own any of the others. And I was watching, I'm like, oh, I remember this one.
Yeah, like, we've seen them.
I think I saw up to the first 5 because of school, and I moved to Germany. Yeah. That's about the era, like, when I left off of. I don't think I saw the one that came out in 2000. I think that was the Firestone one.
Yeah, that's where a lot of our generation fell off.
Yeah, because you're starting to get into like 3rd, 4th, 5th grade where like
and by that
you're
point,
trying to be more mature.
And by that point, you can pick your own movie. I remember these being like rolled in on the TV for like Sunday school.
Mm-hmm.
And like it was never the first one. It was always like the 3rd one.
Okay.
For Sunday school. For school, it was the first one because that one was educational, quote, quote. But like Sunday school, someone would have donated like the 3rd one and we're like, yeah, we're gonna watch the one with the baby T-Rex in it. And then after that, we're gonna watch like 3-2-1 Penguins.
The fuck is 3-2-1 Penguins?
Same people who made VeggieTales, I think. Space Penguins. Don't worry about it.
I had Pengu, so...
we didn't get Pengu.
Pengu is...
I am aware. I found him later in life.
I forgot about Pengu, and I forgot about the Moomins until, like...
I fucking love the Moomins, but I didn't grow up with the Moomins.
Well, I didn't really, like, grow up with them, but they were around me, like...
We had the Smurfs and Trolls. We didn't have... Unfortunately, the Moomins. Yeah,
Moomins were just on, like, advertisements in Germany and shit, and just... That's how I knew of them, and I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about them until you watched them. But also, like, so the narration is, like, really nice for this bit, too, because the dinosaurs are running in fear, falling off
There's a whole
cliffs.
herd that just, like, dies.
Yes.
Did you see that?
Yeah, the entire, like, I'm sitting there, and I had to rewind it, I'm like, wait, did I really just see, like... An entire, like
10 dinosaurs just fall to their death.
Triceratops specifically, too.
Yes.
Because then he just goes on about, like, and herds got separated, as is the case for Sarah.
No, and, like, I like the tone from the narration. As a kid, I knew this was sad and bad.
Mm-hmm.
But as an adult, I'm here watching it, and I'm like, holy shit. This is terrible.
I mean...
So the narration works because the narrator's voice, while emphasizing that this is bad, at no point leads you down the path of panic.
No.
And so as a kid, you're following the narrator because that's what children do.
Yeah, and everything's just kind of moving around and looks pretty.
And, like, you understand that, like, okay, this is bad, but, like, you don't zero in on the dinosaurs being crushed to death by tectonic plates.
No, not at all.
Until you're an adult, and then you're like, holy shit.
Yeah. And now Littlefoot is also separated. He finds his mother dying.
It's so sad.
And for me as well, part of what I think that I also think Don Bluth's animation stands out just a little bit more is like his use of, even though he doesn't use the shading, his use of like weight in the landscapes. Because like the mom tries getting up.
And she crumbles.
Yeah.
Like it all crumbles.
Well, and on top of that, like the rock underneath her crumbles too. So like there's like she doesn't have that footing to stand on.
And like that, it's such a nice touch that he does throughout the whole movie where like when it is a dire problem or like the gravity of the film is there, the stones like are brittle.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the time it's like hard and crusty.
Yeah.
Or squishy.
Or it's slippery.
Yeah. But when it's like either like a fight or like people or dinosaurs are dying, everything becomes just so like dried cookie.
Yeah.
Just falling apart.
Yeah, it's an interesting style. But Littlefoot's mother gives him some advice, tells her you'll be fine, just follow what I told you. And
I'm always with you, Littlefoot.
It's
so sad. It's so fucking sad, man.
I know where they just stole this from.
Star Wars. Oh, well, yeah, obviously. But like
Obi-Wan dying.
But honestly, like, I didn't give a fuck about Obi-Wan dying.
No one did. It's like, oh shit, the old man died.
Ah, damn it.
This one actually has weight to it.
Yes.
Yeah. Because now Littlefoot is completely on his own. He's upset and he runs into Grouchy Rooter, who is portrayed by Matt Hingle, who is the narrator.
Yeah. It's a nice touch.
Which some people will recognize him much more as Commissioner Gordon from 89's Batman, as well as 92 Batman's Return and 97's Batman and Robin, and he's also in The Quick and the Dead.
Hell yeah, Commissioner Gordon.
He has a really big like background. Yes. A lot of westerns.
Yeah.
But like watching this movie as an older individual, I question quite a bit because there's like as a kid I never questioned this stuff, but Rooter's whole purpose is to explain the circle of life. And he just kind of leaves Littlefoot after this scene, like...
Yeah, he does. But it also just kind of really, like, keeps the whole, like, we only hang out with our own thing rolling.
Yeah.
Without, like, specifically being rude about it, like Sarah.
Yeah.
Which I like. This feels more realistic to me.
Yeah, it does make more sense. He's there to soften the blow of, hey, your mom just died, and...
Sucks, but, like, you gotta keep going.
Well, okay, they say that, but there's a part that comes right after this.
Yes.
Because, I mean, we cut to little... going back to your thing real quick, about it softens the blow of, like...
It softens the blow for the audience.
Yeah, well, and also he's mean at first, but then he's like, there's this commonality of, like, I'm sorry for your loss kind of thing.
Yeah.
He tries to be nice. But from here, we cut to a nice little bit about the Flyers fighting over a berry. And
it's very cute.
One tries to cheer up Littlefoot by giving it to him, because their mom comes with berries for all.
Yes. I will say, this is another thing that the Don Bluth studio does, I think, better than Disney still, is portraying grief in a much more, like, heavy and thick way. This movie, for a kids movie, spends a lot more time and effort showing Littlefoot grieving than most kids movies bother to. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a good probably 3 to 5 minutes.
And for a kids film, that's ages.
Yeah, and especially for this one where it doesn't even have like a full hour, 20-minute runtime. Like,
and it's all very, like, believable grieving styles, like mentioning that he doesn't want to eat, he doesn't really think about anything other than his mom.
Yep.
For a kid, especially kids who, let's be real, if you watched this and you were obsessed with dinosaurs, probably also had trouble understanding emotions of other human beings, didn't you?
Yeah.
So this was very helpful.
Oh yeah. Well, and I mean, on top of that, like, he's wandering the desert alone, and like,
and the music just kind of adds all to it, because it's not really sad, it's just sorrowful music.
Yeah, and I mean, the only thing that gives him hope is a random tree star finds him.
He gets one last leaf.
Yeah, and he kind of keeps it special.
It tries,
but he also is he's mistaking. Here's the thing. So I wrote something along of giving him a little bit of shit that he doesn't know what his shadow is, but it kind of makes sense a little bit more that infant. Well, he's purposely being delusional of, like... Yes.
He knows it's not his mom. He wants it to be his mom.
Exactly. But right after this part, we get this whole thing about, like, Littlefoot knew through the narrator, Littlefoot knew for certain that he was alone all along. And now he must find a way, or the chain of life will be broken. And it's like... That is a really, really dark part for a kid's movie, dude.
And no kid noticed at all.
No, not at all.
You didn't recognize that fact at all.
No, it took me rewatching it as an adult to be like, oh, I forgot how dark this movie really is. Because Littlefoot runs right back into Sarah, who's stubborn to find out find her sisters and her dad, which, to make this movie even more of a buzzkill, Sarah is a single child throughout almost all of the sequels until, like, the last 2 movies.
She's not in the first one, though. She's got, like, 4 other siblings.
Not anymore, she doesn't.
We don't know what happened to them when she gets to the Great Valley, but they're not there.
Yeah. They're dead.
They're dead.
They're dead. They probably fell off with that whole group of other ones that fell off, along with her mother, because her dad is a bachelor for the rest of this franchise as well.
Yeah, he is. He's an asshole.
Single, racist, dinosaur racist father.
Boy, he's just got a lot of descriptives.
He feels the very stereotypical, like, white trash of the dinosaurs.
He is the wife beater of the dinosaurs. Yeah.
Yeah.
The dirty, grease-stained wife beater.
Yeah.
That is too long for you.
Yeah, so Littlefoot and Sarah split separate ways, which I don't think we brought this up yet. I didn't realize this until I was watching with subtitles. Sarah's name is spelled with a C.
Yes, it is. My husband is 31 years old, and last night he realized that Sarah is short for Triceratops.
O'Brien. So I know he got off late yesterday and had to skip out on Lads Night. I think he would have been really annoyed. We watched the most recent inspired adaptation of 47 Ronin.
I mean, I know the one you speak of.
Yeah.
It is enjoyable. He enjoyed crying his little eyes out to this movie because we watched this. And my husband will cry when the mom dies every time.
Oh, I was talking about the 47
Oh, no one gives a shit about it.
I was going to say, like...
There's no sad parts in that movie.
Yeah, he would have been annoyed by that, but it's fun finding movies, because I am on a quest to find a musical that both you and your husband hate.
I can give you one, but it will be for a day when you plan on death. You need to have your will written, and I will give you the one that will annoy him the most.
What's that?
I can't tell you unless you have your will done.
I don't.
Yeah, you let me know when that's done, and I will let you know which musical is his least favorite musical of all time.
One that both of you hate is the big thing.
I don't...
Here's the thing, because so
finding one he hates will be a lot easier.
No, that's the exact thing, because of every musical I've shown you guys, it either falls into one category, or one of two categories. He absolutely hates it, and you love it.
Yeah, that's fact.
Or he absolutely loves it, and you cannot stand it.
He does like a lot of rom-coms.
Yes, and I'm excited for our next.
Yeah.
But yeah, that aside, we cut to Littlefoot still moping, but we get the big mouth ducky, who I always thought she was a swimmer for some reason.
I mean, she does swim.
That's why I thought she was a swimmer. They're always by the water.
That's true. I mean, when you see her design next to the adult version, she makes sense.
Yes, and then you get to, like, what, the fourth or... No, I think it's, like, the sixth movie where we get the actual annoying-ass Ichthyosaur.
Yes. Yeah.
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 Ichthyosaur swimmer.
As the movies progress, the distinction in dinosaurs does get more distinct.
Yes. But she shows up to kind of, like, break that little chain of, like, hey, we're not that different.
And also, like, recognizing that it's okay to, like, need somebody.
Yeah.
Like, she is written with every intent to be annoying and yet somehow charming.
Yeah, actually, you're right, because she is an endearing character. You do feel sorry for her. I don't think she's written to be annoying. She has that very peppy attitude that some people will find obnoxious, but she's not over the top obnoxious.
No, yeah.
She'll irritate you on the wrong day, but she's a good dinosaur at heart.
Exactly.
But she also tries pretending to be a long neck a little bit too, and like, hey,
look, see, we both have tails.
Yeah, I can stretch my neck a wee bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just a way to bring them together and show that they're not that different.
Exactly.
Also, we get a nice little subtle change from the cool tones to some warmer tones as Littlefoot now has a friend.
Yeah, it's so sweet.
And
everything's still dead, but now they're together.
Yeah. Well, they also make a kids game out of serious things. Like, they start doing dinosaur hopscotch kind of thing.
It's pretty common kids saying to, like, not step on cracks.
Oh, that's right. That's what they do. That's formed a habit in my real life of I don't step on cracks or grout lines.
Exactly. I think a lot of us accidentally, or you did it on purpose and looked at your parents hoping that their backs would break.
My parents would pretend to do.
Yes, mine did too. It was hilarious.
Yeah. The little things that affect you later in life.
Now you won't step on them, just in case.
But we run into a talking tree, but it is really the flyer Petrie, who is portrayed by Will Ryan.
I like Petrie.
And for me, Petrie feels like a very proto-Bartok.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. This is pre-Bartok, so yeah. And he had a little nub head, yeah.
Yeah, which I looked it up. We covered this in our Anastasia episode a little bit. Back on episode 19.
Oof.
It feels so long ago, doesn't it? But yeah, I think it's interesting seeing, and I do want to go down a Don Bluth rabbit hole at some point too myself, just to see the influences, because we do see a repetition of his characters, and
he has some style choices that, like, stand out because they are so different than, like, what we were seeing at the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, the, like, spotty, bald-headed squish person does make a repetition for him.
Yeah, and a lot of this story is basically Dinosaur 5 Goes West.
Yes.
Or not 5 Goes West,
just
An American Tale.
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah.
5 Goes West is a whole nother shindig.
Yes.
More racism, though.
Yeah, there is.
He deals with that a lot.
In actually in interesting ways, though, like,
Yeah, they're all different. I'll give them that.
Yeah, better than Hairspray.
Oh, man.
But anywho, we cut back to Sarah, who finds the sharp tooth dead, proceeds to fuck around and find out it's alive.
God damn it, Sarah.
Yeah.
God damn it, Sarah.
Which was a scary scene as a kid.
No, it still gives you that little, like, jump. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's got just enough Spielberg hit that you're like, I see it. The eye snapping open? Yeah.
He repeated it in Jurassic Park.
Yes, he did, but you know what? They're different enough for me.
Yeah, they are. It's the same idea.
Yeah.
Which is, again, an interesting thing to see where, like, this actually has quite a bit of ties to, like, Jurassic Park.
Yes, it does, despite being very squishy.
Yes. And so now we cut back to the other trio as they skirt around another dinosaur with a giant fin. I forget, it's like Dimetrodon or something.
Yeah, something like that.
And the dipshits are learning the dynamics of the world as they try and also peer pressure Petrie into flying.
They do very quickly get tired of Petrie's bullshit.
Yeah. Which is kind of funny because they terrorate Sarah's for so long too.
Yeah. I will say that is one of the things that, like, for the first one, I would argue that the rest of the series kind of loses this.
Mm-hmm.
But especially the first one, the kids' dynamic, while not being overly, like, adults writing kids, it does feel very like, realistic kid dynamics.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, no one's quite the age that they are trying to be, but, like, having the one kid who hums the entire time, having the other one who's just an ass about everything, it has to be her idea.
The neurotic scaredy cat.
Yeah, and then also, like, even though they're friends, still bullying each other, like, it feels right. It feels very, like, solid.
Yeah. On that note, Mark, you short shit. Mark's not that short. He's like an inch shorter than me, but he's...
That counts.
Insecure. And I know he's gonna give me the middle finger at some point.
Well, you know, it's what our friends for.
But they run into Sarah, who's talking the big shit that she ran into this sharp tooth and said did the childhood equivalent of, I looked that sharp tooth right in the eye and I said, bitch.
Yeah, that's exactly what she did.
Yeah.
And then is surprised that no one believes her.
Well, and it's quickly overshadowed because Duckley gets flung into the air, into a bunch of grass, and finds a random egg that's Spike, who got left behind.
Spike is... I think the movie's trying to go for lazy. As an adult, comes off as something's up with Spike.
Yeah.
His egg's been sitting in the sun too long. I don't know. He does manage to make dry grass look very appetizing, though.
I mean, he'll eat anything at
this point. He will eat anything.
Spike, who is the Spike Tail, shocking.
What?
Uncredited and listed on IMDb as Von Barty, who that's his only role listed.
Doesn't Spike's only dialogue consist of grunts?
No. He has one line, I think, in like the 5th or 6th movie.
That doesn't count.
No, he has no lines in this movie. Well, here's the thing. Neither does Littlefoot's grandfather, who says absolutely nothing this entire movie, still has a voice credit.
That's true.
And is actually voice credited and not uncredited.
I also appreciate how in later films we completely ignore Littlefoot's grandmother exists.
No, she has bits here and there.
His grandfather is the one, though.
I mean, to be fair, strong father figure.
True.
For an orphan.
Very true.
Kind of orphan until...
Readopted orphan.
Yeah. And actually, there's a couple episodes or a couple movies that are very long neck centered.
Yeah.
But we are on the road again with as they lead Spike along with
a carrot on a stick.
Yeah.
In essence.
Yeah, and Littlefoot keeps dropping his precious tree star quite a bit, even though bitching about like, hey, don't hurt that Petrie. It's precious. It's his mom's. Yep.
Yeah, I mean it's accurate kid dynamic. It's precious to them. They're the only ones who get to destroy it.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but they find a bunch of trees, but
don't worry, some other not the same type of long necks, but similar. Eat all of them.
Some kind of long necks get to it first. But there's one tree left behind, and teamwork
is the dream work.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah.
And they get the green foods, but
not Sarah because she's a bitch.
She's being a little brat, a strong, independent woman.
Yeah. Granted,
it's more so dinosaur racism than that.
It is dinosaur racism, but at the same time, her being stubborn is such a character trait for her, and I appreciate that they do attempt to kind of keep her that level of stubborn throughout the rest of the franchise.
Oh, she is
obnoxiously stubborn.
She's obnoxiously stubborn, but not racist stubborn.
Yes. So I like that this is like a character trait of Sarah and less of like, she's only stubborn because she's racist. You know what? You see what I mean?
Yeah. It's
you can be both at the same time, but you can also be separate at the same time.
Yeah, just you're a stubborn asshole.
Yeah.
You're just not racist, which makes it better.
Yeah.
And so at night, they are forced to cuddle, or they force cuddle with Sarah, as Littlefoot ends up sleeping alone.
Because he's so sad.
But they all end up cuddling back with him, and Sarah's... This is her part of learning loneliness is hard, because they all quickly abandon Sarah to go cuddle with Littlefoot.
Yes.
And it's quick, but in the morning, a sharp tooth is about.
Spooky.
And the tree star smash, as important as it was, it does jack shit the whole movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
But
I mean, it's a nice symbol of like finally letting go.
Not even really.
I know, but like it could be.
No.
I guess.
That's pulling too much.
Alright, fine.
Actually, it is kind of the end of like Littlefoot's mother in this whole arc for the most part. I think she has like one little bit more.
There's like at the very end, his like promised land, Jesus, Simba in the sky sort of thing. That
ChoseSimba.
Chosen one.
Another early episode that we covered. But they do find the long neck rock, and they know they're in the right direction, which they say Littlefoot knew all along, which is bullshit.
Littlefoot had no fucking idea where he was going.
Yeah. Also, my biggest question of this movie.
Yes.
How the fuck did any of them know this way?
I don't hate it because it feels like a good child explanation of migration.
That actually, they do okay.
It's not great. It's not a scientifically accurate, but it feels right.
They do a much better job of migration later on. And the later one, the Day of the Long Necks.
I completely agree with you there. But this, like, in child logic movie world, it does pass the radar test.
It's also like the 9th or 10th movie before we're finally introduced to Littlefoot's dad.
Yeah, we don't talk about him.
We might.
Eventually.
I don't know. Maybe we'll do these. The rest
I care
of the
more about the
franchise's
T-Rex
shorts.
baby that they adopt and the alien than I do about Littlefoot's father.
Same. I care more about the old like gunslinger dinosaur that comes through later on.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. But they keep carrying on. They're climbing a big hill. They're heading towards the Burning Mountains.
And what's on the other side of those Burning Mountains?
Well, they haven't gotten to the Burning Mountains yet. They're climbing this giant hill, and they have this big use of music, and there's nothing.
It is a delight.
Yes.
A very nice, like, payoff.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is a good sell on the hope that on the other side's going to be something. Oh yeah, no, it's a very, I don't know the right use of like comedic relief. Yes. But
not at the same time, because as a kid, you're like, oh, they're almost there.
And then it really helps solidify like their trial, their odyssey has been grueling up until this point. And they're like, this is it. Yeah. We've got there. And then the way ahead is arguably worse.
Yes, no, it is. And speaking of the music, it's composed by James Horner. I know we mentioned the music a little bit before. Yes. But he was also the composer of An American Tail.
Also excellent music.
Star Trek 2 and 3.
Okay.
Cocoon.
Yes.
Aliens, Batteries Not Included, and Willow.
Batteries Not Included, delight.
All before The Land Before Time.
Yes.
And he would also do a couple little films known as Hocus Pocus.
I think I heard of that one.
Braveheart, also known as the Patriot, or as the Scottish Patriot. That is exactly what Braveheart is. It's the Scottish Patriot. Although I think that came out before, so technically Braveheart or the Patriot is the American Braveheart. Jumanji.
A good one.
Balto, which will tie into the end of this movie.
I love Balto.
And Titanic, to name a few. Titanic. But frustrated, Sarah starts fighting Littlefoot as their adopted children cower in the corner.
And once again, we see the return of the crumbly rocks.
Crumbly rocks and a darker theme of domestic abuse.
Sure.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sarah is very much like the fatherly, or kind of. Like the very stereotypical, like, jackass father character.
She is very self-centered.
Yes.
Yes.
Which, I mean, makes a little bit more sense, because I think the original idea was for Sarah to be a male character.
Okay, I kind of like that she's a she.
Yeah.
Mostly because, like, this movie plays really nicely with, like, they're just dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, they don't really have, like, the strong, like, oh, the girly one is the flyer and cute.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, she's small and dainty, but, like, it's not really in a girly way.
No.
It's the singing that makes her feel girly. Whereas Sarah's definitely feels girly, but, like, in that, like, tomboy, like,
yes,
mess around and I'm gonna fuck you up sort of chihuahua energy.
Yeah, that one girl who got or hit puberty early and was a bully because she was bigger than everyone,
Exactly.
pretty much. Yeah. So, I mean, it's got these little hints. I know they're not really playing Dinosaur House or anything.
No, but it's definitely, like, it is a good, like, demonstration of, like, leadership roles, though, and how, like, even though they can be friends, fighting over difference of ideas can, like, really be a thing.
Yes. And, I mean, it also shows, and going back to a little bit more of, like, the biblical sense of Don Bluth's aspects, Littlefoot is following his faith in what his mother told him, and the faith of their speech, or what they've had, basically the Gospel of the Great Valley and the Tree Stars.
Exactly. The Promised Land.
Whereas Sarah is
taking the easy way, which to them is the logical way.
Yeah, she's leading them astray.
Yes.
Kind of, but it doesn't really play out that way either.
No, but I do appreciate his approach to it, because, like, from his storytelling point of view, they are tired and the easy way out, despite not being the mythologically correct way. Like, this is a good way of explaining that to a kid without making it seem so blatantly obviously black and white.
Yeah, it's not like VeggieTales and the Giant Chocolate Bunny.
I love that one.
I like that movie too, just because.
But that one's cutting it real. Like, it's real easy to, as a kid, to be like, they're doing it wrong, because, like, it's hard as a kid to imagine the other side.
Yeah.
This does a really nice, like, way of leading kids into understanding.
Yeah, it's not as stark as, like, the VeggieTales silly songs, which is mainly what I remember from the show. I don't remember.
Those were the best parts.
Yes. It's like going from that to be like, oh, here's a lesson.
Yeah. I mean, they did have to cut out a lot of murder for the rest of the VeggieTales Bible lessons, so.
Oh, yes. But we cut to Mount Doom. There's dinosaur bones everywhere.
Yeah, but there's also, like, a shit ton of footprints, which, like, if you're paying close attention, the footprints are the way that Littlefoot's going.
I did not notice that.
It's not in every scene, especially, like, the climbing ones.
They're kind of, like, crossing paths a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, that explains something a little bit later on, because we get this bit where, like, I like the use of the tar pit.
I do too.
Throwback to, like, your childhood of, like, oh, the tar pits are where mammoths are.
Yes, very much tar pits were, like, solidified, like, yes, that is part of Dinosaur. They're just tar pits everywhere. They're coming to kill him.
It's the dinosaur quicksand.
It is dinosaur quicksand, both of which I thought were going to be bigger problems in my life.
Yes. This is a very nostalgic movie to review.
Yeah.
But it is a nice way of her completely ignoring and her kind of leadership of just like
and like she's
running forward without care.
Yes. I also think this is where the detail of this movie for an adult really starts like hammering home like some of the better lessons in this, because without being obvious, without having to have the narrator come in and like tell you, it is easy to see that Sarah is leaving people behind. She's picked the wrong way and like won't admit when she's done it wrong, even before the narrator has to step in and like be like, "Oh, stupid Sarah." Yeah.
Well, and I here's the part where I do like that I think it's cool that you mentioned that their paths are crossing.
Yeah.
Because when they start screaming and like, "Hey, help us!" Littlefoot comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's like right there.
Yeah. Like not even like 2 seconds to get for pacing works.
Yes. It's a good tension, and like it's also like this is from an adult standpoint easy for you to like convince yourself that this movie is trying to teach good leadership without like actually teaching good leadership.
Yeah.
Like that's not the main point of this, but it does do it.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's why these older children's movies still hold up a little bit more, is because they have they feel more multi-layered than like, hey, here's our message. It's family. Or, hey,
friendship is the magic all along.
Your husband was so pissed off about that. For those who don't know, we had a whole treasure hunt for him for his birthday, and we left out a gift, and our dumbass idea was to do a One Piece bullshit of like, friendship is the true treasure.
Which is his least favorite anime, and his least favorite anime trope. Despite all of the shows that he loves, with the exception of Full Metal Alchemist, all of his favorite shows are just friendship bullshit.
Which is funny why he hates that so much. He hates it. But also, we're a little bit... Littlefoot's tale is quite prehensile.
Yes, it is. It is unexplained.
Which I didn't notice as a kid, but as an adult, it's like one of those like little nitpicky things of like my third watch of like, that's weird.
It is weird, but I don't care.
Yeah, but
he's also very squishy.
They all are. But we cut to Sarah, who is now being hunted by head bashers, but not really because they're kind of fighting each other, but...
Yeah, this is another one of those moments where it's like, yeah, that was a dinosaur. Would those dinosaurs fight children? I don't know. But they are scary.
Who knows?
I like to think that she tried to, like, challenge them in a head-beating contest and realize that she sucks and is a child.
That makes much more sense. But she's saved by the tarred monstrosity, which doesn't... I'm sure there's some part that was cut how they got out, but no, I doubt that would be, because then it doesn't...
It would ruin the surprise.
Yeah.
I will say that living through being tarred was weirdly kind of like... It's in more than one movie for kids.
Yeah.
And as you get older, you realize that this is not good to be covered in tar.
No. Being tarred and feathered was a horrible thing. Yeah.
You overheat and die.
Overheat and die, or if you survive, the tar is like fused to your skin and like it will pull your skin off. Like,
yes.
Or you'll die from the infection of it. Being tarred and feathered was a horrible, horrible thing.
Yes. But for some reason, having tar oozing off of you as in a children's movie was like in multiple movies.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Why couldn't it have been mud?
Because dinosaurs and tar and dinosaur quicksand.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Dinosaurs and quicksand.
But Sarah's still being the asshole, still thinks she's right, but
this makes Sarah good character.
Yes.
Because if she had been like, I messed up, I'm so sorry, I would have been like, bullshit. Who are you?
But I love this. The narrator just fucking calls her out on her bullshit. It's great.
And this is the perfect use of a narrator in a kid's movie, because having an immediate turnaround of forgiveness for a movie that is trying so hard to set realistic expectations for kids in relationships would have just been lying to those children.
Oh, yeah. And it's also just a great reemphasis of like, hey, she's wrong, you know.
She's wrong, you know. And like, she's stubborn. But, like, that's just who she is. Mm-hmm. Like, you're not changing that.
Yeah. And so, as she goes off on her own, the rest see that the sharp tooth is still kicking. And so, Now they decide to Home Alone it, but instead of trying to stop it, they're gonna kill it for good.
You know what? In child logic, makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is the worst, because there's so much there.
Yeah.
There's so much there, but, like, it makes sense. I hate it.
And their plan doesn't go according to plan.
Because of course it doesn't.
I love this part as a kid. I thought the whole pool setup was dope.
Me too. I thought this was badass. And then as an adult, I'm watching and I'm like, boy, we really risking everybody here.
Yeah. Because they are about to die until Sarah comes in and finishes their plan.
Yes.
Which, I mean...
Ducky comes inches to death.
But it's her good redemption moment.
It is. And, like, it is a good redemption without having, like, a nonsense, like, her coming back sort of thing. Like, this is a good wrap-up.
Yeah, and it also kind of leaves a little bit hanging that, oh, maybe Petrie's dead, but doesn't hang too long. It doesn't pull the...
It doesn't...
Gandalf.
Yeah, yeah, we don't pull a Gandalf, but we do get that, like... He finally gets to fly, and this feels like a good, like, moment of, like, oh, he's doing it to save Ducky. And then he's dead. But he's not, it's okay.
Of all the things they could have done, imagine if they killed off Petrie, and then, like, 5 movies later they retconned him back to life. Like, but they don't do that for Sarah's siblings.
No, because Sarah's siblings are dead and useless.
Yeah. I mean, they were baby dinosaurs.
Yeah, the fact that all of them make it to the end of this is a miracle.
I mean, the way they survived is they had to overcome adversity and commit mother-approved murder.
Mother-approved murder.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because this is the part where the Cloud Mother returns and leads them to the Great Valley.
Okay, I will say, though, that I like Dead Cloud Dinosaur Mother much more than Sky Lion Dad. Mm-hmm. Because this one at least plays back into the idea where, like, as a kid you're watching it, like, yeah, that's his mom. Yeah. As an adult, you pretty easy can watch it and be like, no, that's a cloud, baby. Yeah. Like, it's just a cloud.
Dinosaur faith.
Yeah, like, this is a good way of doing it without hand-holding.
Tree Star is love. Tree Star is life.
Yeah. Like, this is a much nicer way to do it than having your dead parents spirit in from the heavens.
Yeah, true.
And, like, having to, like, yell at them to give you answers.
Yeah, that's a good point. But all of them find their families besides Spike, who's adopted by the Big Mouths.
Spike's parents didn't want him.
No.
They left him.
They did. They
full-on left that poor child.
That is a part of another movie.
No, that is a different movie,
Yeah. And now, according to this movie, the dinosaurs lived happily ever after for 13 direct-to-movie video sequels that they never get older as the credits roll.
Yeah, and they slowly get dumber and dumber.
They get very dumber and dumber.
It's not a super steep drop-off, but it's there.
No, and that's the weird thing. So, like, after watching all of these...
How did you feel?
They're not terrible.
No, that's the weird part, isn't it?
Yeah, they're like a mediocre children's movie, which...
Like, they're fine.
Yeah.
Which I think is why they managed to sneak their way into my church. Mm-hmm.
Well, and they're all... And that's the thing, is they are all lesson-based.
They are all lesson-based. I would argue not as well done as this one.
No.
They mostly because Don Bluth this is the only one that him and Spielberg are part of.
Yes.
The rest are a different group.
Exactly.
And I think that shows because the rest of them, while good, brighten the color palette up significantly. We step real far away from being sad and dark.
And there's that one bit, I remember I sent you the picture because I got really annoyed. I think it's like around the 10th movie where they like completely change the animation and just say fuck all and get really, really lazy with it.
Yeah, it's cheap animation.
Yeah, really, really bad.
Yeah, but the biggest difference for me is I don't care too much that the sequels change the color palette. I don't even care that they lower the quality of the animation because honestly, like, I get it. Kids, like, I was a consumer kid. I needed constant stuff. Yeah. Granted, I'd watched the same thing 1,000 times, but that one thing could be the 7th one, not necessarily the first good one. Yeah. The thing that really stands out for me and why I understand why we only own the first one from my mom's point of view,
Mm-hmm.
is the rest of them pick one single lesson, one single life thing to learn, and there is no other growth in the movie. This one, significantly, like, there's a lot of lessons that if you wanted to, you could pick through.
We do get a return to dinosaur racism with invasion of the Dinosaurs.
Yeah, we do. I mean, the whole dinosaur racism thing persists for quite a while in this world.
Well, mainly between the Sharptooths and whatnot.
Yes, which is kind of like a whatever.
Yeah.
This one, I think, handles it by far the best.
Oh, yeah.
Especially because with the Sharptooth one, we end up using an infant to, bond with them.
This was also, the point of the movie, too,
yes.
because Bluth and Spielberg...
This is what they agreed on, yes.
Yeah, this is what they were going for. And, I mean, this movie was relatively successful. There's lots of, special collector's edition sets out there.
Oh, yeah. It gets re-released fairly regularly.
Yeah. And, I mean, we harped on it a little bit, sequels, but this is also the only one that's not a musical, and the only one released theatrically worldwide.
Which, as someone who... I watched all of the other ones quite a lot. The music for the first one, though, is still my favorite music. And I like musical sing-alongs. I like kid musical sing-alongs. I know you don't. But
they're fine.
Yeah. The music for this one, I actively listen to it. I have a playlist of, movies that don't have sing-alongs. This is right up there with How to Train Your Dragon for me. Beautiful music.
Interesting. I mean, I can't say shit. I've listened to the Lord of the Rings and Star Wars soundtracks.
I've heard your car playlist.
It's mainly Final Fantasy.
Yes,
right
it
now.
is.
My brother gives me so much shit that's been
You're on a quest every time you go to the grocery store.
Well, so the reason I have it in my car is because normally I'm listening to my phone and stuff, and
excuses.
It wasn't a podcast. But yes, it is nice to go on quests to make every day feel less boring.
Yes.
But on top of this, there are also spin-off TV series that has 2 seasons, a total of 26 episodes.
Yeah.
As well as 14 spin-off games.
Oh, yes. I remember the games.
I did not know it had video games.
Don't worry, you weren't missing much.
I highly doubt it.
They weren't as bad as the later ones were. But they weren't as bad as originally as money grabber games that we're all familiar with nowadays. But they were money grabber games back in the day.
Yeah.
Better thought out money grabber games. Still useless.
Yeah, I have a feeling they were in a bin somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But this was also the second and final film that Bluth would work on with Spielberg. For some reason, I couldn't 100% find out, but it seems like there was differences in personalities and creative directions.
Yeah. I think Spielberg really wanted to have his own studio.
Well, and more control over it, because I did read that, and it isn't in regards to The Land Before Time, but in An American Tale, Spielberg had to fight to get the dedication to his grandfather written in. And Bluth was really against that. So I think it was more so that they butted heads, is what it was. And
to be fair, both of them have been well-documented, strong-headed, wanting their own way or the highway. It's kind of why Don Bluth had his own firm in the first place. Yep. So I can totally see why. It is sad, because after the backing and name, I don't want to say it was just his name, because he did add quite a lot to the movies. But once Spielberg left the picture, there wasn't as much around the Don Bluth films.
No. Well, and okay, so there's something to that, and I'll get into it in just a minute.
Yeah.
So, splitting this up a little bit, Bluth all credits his weaker output due to studio interference. So because of this movie, Don Bluth has been more selective of what he's done. Which
is, for those of us who like his work, been sad.
Yeah. Which I do like that there's this resurgence and he's starting to do more.
He had stuff that was supposed to come out recently, but pandemic,
and I think there was a little bit of a hurl, because he's doing the night game that everyone likes.
I can't remember its name.
I can't either.
There was supposed to be a new live action.
Yeah, or no, I think he's doing an animated one.
I couldn't remember. But there was something that's supposed to be released soon, and unfortunately, for him, unless it's exactly how he wants, it doesn't happen.
Yeah. But Land Before Time in combination with An American Tail and Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Mwah, beautiful.
Another one of my faux pas.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen that one.
You would very much like it.
I know I would. It's not high on my list of ones to
that is
get
fair.
to.
I think that one is one of the ones where you really should watch it in tangent with another similar movie.
Okay.
Specifically Cool World.
I know of Cool World.
Both those two really like encapsulate an entire genre of movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very small genre, but boy, how do you do those two hold that genre up?
Yeah. But these movies would lead to the founding of the short-lived animation studio Emblemation that Spielberg founded, which would only last a decade, and theatrically would release only 3 more movies, including An American Tail, Fievel Goes West.
A good one.
We're Back, A Dinosaur Story.
I'm good.
And their last movie, Balto.
I love Balto.
All which were part of my childhood.
Yes. Please note, Balto 2 and 3, Disney.
Huh.
I think. That or it's Universal, I'm not sure.
I forget that Balto has sequels. It might be DreamWorks because the entire studio left after the studio closed to go work for DreamWorks.
Probably that then. They are not as good.
I highly doubt that they got it.
They're not the worst, but boy, they are. It's very focused on the whole, like, they got married, kiss, kiss,
Mm-hmm.
It's weird.
Yes. And so, also, speaking of people, none of the actors continued in the series either.
No, I can't blame them.
It's all kind of one and done. And while we're on that, we can't talk about this movie without mentioning the unfortunate murder of the voice actress for Ducky, Judith Barcy, who 4 months before this was released was murdered by her father after his abuse and jealousy grew too much.
He turned out to be a terrible asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And her last recordings were for All Dogs Go to Heaven as the main little girl, which just breaks your heart even more, because god damn it.
Yeah. And everyone who worked with her said, like, she had the makings of being a good actress. Like, she had the chops as a kid, and that's what's amazing about...
And for someone who didn't get to work very long, she worked on quite a lot. Yeah. For a kid actor, like, surprisingly did quite a bit.
And to make it even more depressing, her grave says, "Our little angel." Yep.
It does. So sad.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's just something we can't not talk about with this movie. And...
No, because when you watch this as a kid, like, you watch it and you're sad anyway, and then you watch it as an adult and you're just crushed.
Yes. Yeah, because I mean, she does of the actors in the movie, like everyone does a good job. Everyone does a good job too.
Oh yeah, they all do. Like for a bunch of kid voice actors, the movie's good. Mm-hmm. The voice acting is good. Yeah, which is hard to say.
Exactly. So there's that bit to it too. It just it adds a little bit more heaviness to the movie.
It sure do.
And in that thought of heaviness, I mean, The Land Before Time, we mentioned it was. For when I was rewatching it, it felt like they held back a lot, and that's because they removed about 11 minutes of footage. Yes. To cut it to a G rating instead of making it a PG rating. And
boy, if you hadn't told me it was G, I would have believed it being PG. Yeah. Because it doesn't shy away from any of the big topics.
No. And they did it to make it less dark and distressing for kids. At least they took some consideration into it. Yes. And they also had to revoice screams to make it less scary.
Which, granted, good job, because boy, the screams are convincing.
Yeah. And so, The Land Before Time for me, yes, it sits a little mixed for me.
I can understand.
In rewatching this, I do like the darker tone, but for me as an adult, it misses its mark just a little bit. Okay. But I can pass that, giving that it's specifically meant for children. Yes. But for me, this movie has a little bit of a interesting spot in my life. So, to give a little bit of my history, I don't like to harp on my personal experience as much, but I watched Jurassic Park before I watched Land Before Time.
I did too.
And the reason these types of movies, and I watched Jurassic Park young, but the reason these movies hold a little bit more for me than Disney movies ever did, my whole family was never really into Disney. My mom wasn't a huge fan of Disney.
Okay.
And the only reason we had this movie on VHS and any of the Disney movies on VHS is because my neighbor's kids outgrew them and my mom accepted them.
Okay.
So and I didn't watch a lot of Disney movies until I was older. So it's this weird little aspect of like my mom not necessarily, or both my parents, because both my parents let me watch Jurassic Park.
Just put your dad right under the bus next to your mom.
Oh, they had let us watch Indiana Jones and shit. So
I will give Indiana Jones a pass, minus the heart ripping out one.
Oh, I watched that shit.
Oh, I did too. I think that one, my dad was the culprit on that.
My dad probably had a hand in that too.
It's a very dad film.
Yeah. Well, but yeah. I mean, for me, it has bittersweet sweet feelings for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I like it in the nostalgia sense.
Sure.
As an adult, I still enjoy it, but it just misses that mark ever so slightly that I think it could have been elevated just that a little bit higher, and it would have made it a timeless classic.
Okay.
Because I think the messages are there. I just don't think they committed as much as they could have.
Sure.
Yeah. So what about you? What do you think about
this movie? I think is a hard one to place. Mm-hmm. Because I can understand, especially if you rewatch it in the eyes of like, am I going to let other young ones watch this? Mm-hmm. I can understand a lot of the reservation there. Yeah. This, despite being a G-rated film, this is a heavy hitter.
It is.
It stands out from its other G-rated counterparts, which are usually like Winnie the Pooh is, kind of the cornerstone of the G-rated world. Winnie the Pooh doesn't really ever have big problems like this.
No.
And even the ones that I would argue tackle similar problems, most of those hit the PG-13 rating. Or at least the PG rating.
Yeah, now thinking about it, like, I think this also starts to explain a little bit more, like, in my personal taste of, like, why I don't care for Winnie the Pooh, why I don't care for Charlie Brown. I like the darker children's movies, I guess.
And I think for me, this is a film that I do rewatch. I do come back to it. Mm-hmm. Partially because I love the Don Bluth studio films. Yeah. I like the color palettes. I like the animation style a lot. But I think what really stands this one out for me and why I do put it in my classics, despite separating it from the Don Bluth collection, is because for me, this is one of the few ones that tackles a multitude of problems in a way that for me I could understand. Okay. And I still come back to it occasionally as almost like a comfort movie. Okay. Even though I cry every fucking time I watch this. It's not comforting to watch this movie. Like, you get to the end and you're not comfortable.
It's really not. And I think that's part of, if they had spaced stuff out a little bit better.
I think if this had just a hair longer runtime.
Yeah. Because we immediately cut from killing the Tyrannosaurus to all of a sudden we're at the valley and we're at the end of the movie.
And, we don't spend any time in the Great Valley. No. We get, a flyover. Everyone gets a quick, oh, look, they're parents. Mm-hmm. And that's it. It's minutes at best. And so, yeah, I can see where the room for improvement is for this. Okay. But for me, I don't watch this movie to have that conclusion. I watch this movie to, analyze as I go. Okay. And every time I watch this, I find something new that I can sit there and reminisce on. Or I can be upset about. Which sounds dumb, but, I feel like it's important to have movies that make you upset.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean...
Hell. And for me, this is the movie that makes me upset, but I like it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my sad movies, if I want to watch something sad and depressing, I go to Ikiru or The Human Condition.
Yeah. And so I think for me, that's why this one becomes a classic. Okay. Is because it is not a comfortable film. But it is one that no matter what type of mood I am, I don't have to be in a special mood like I do with a lot of my other sad films, because a lot of my other sad films require, the right audience. I can't watch them with the roommates in the house or with little kids in the house, or I have to be in the mood to be depressed.
Yeah.
For like a full day or so afterwards. This one, you're not comfortable at the end, but you also aren't left with a crushing sadness.
True.
You get the crushing sadness throughout the rest of the film, but you don't end with it. You have a release.
Yeah. No,
it's not a resolution, it's just a release.
And I think that's a really good point in rewatching this and not looking at it as such a critical eye as like I have, I guess.
And like, yeah, from a critic's standpoint, yeah, there's a lot that could be improved.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think if this hadn't had all of the direct to VHS sequels that it did, a second one with the level of effort and care could have been really good.
Yeah, no, I think that's part of it too, is seeing where the series went and why this one might be a little bit of a letdown, because it's a good standalone movie, but it just falls short because of what the franchise became.
Yes. I also think for a lot of us, this movie has a weird place, because this is, especially for kids who like movies with the anthropomorphized main characters as opposed to like live action characters, this is one of the only ones that you can have with dinosaurs, which I know sounds dumb, but god damn it, is it not important. Yeah. Because as a kid, you're kind of stuck with Disney, which Disney kind of, I know they have their anthropomorphized characters, Lion King being the crowning jewel of that, but most of them are, like, if you're a dinosaur kid, you want content. I just can't. And there's just not that much dinosaur fucking content.
There's really not, but not unless you want to go like the shitty sci-fi movie route.
And like I watched all of those suckers, but like they're bad. Yeah. And even as a kid, you watch them and you know they're bad. Dinosaur Island was bad.
I don't know that one.
It's dinosaurs on an island in the Bermuda Triangle. It's bad.
Sounds dumb as shit.
It was dumb as shit.
But yeah. So I guess our first rating on the scale of TG, TB, TW, what do you give it, Chris?
I give it a solid good.
Okay.
I know critically it can be improved, but I think that what it does beautifully.
Okay. I also give it a good, but not a great, if you know what I mean.
I can understand that.
It's good for nostalgia, and I think it's good for kids.
Yes.
But I think it definitely has its place in animation history, but I think it's kind of lost that place a little bit.
It's definitely not the crowning jewel anymore.
No. And I think that's the issue, is because with how much is out there, I feel if we show it to our friends' kids by the time they're old enough to comprehend what they're watching,
sure,
it's not going to stick like it used to.
I think, as someone who forced other people's children to watch many an old-timey movie, because it bothered me greatly that the generation below us hadn't seen things like Mary Poppins or Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. I made the kids that I nannied or babysat for watch these sorts of movies, and this was one of them. We watched this sucker because I would bring my collection with me when I watched them, or if they were coming to my house. And with most kids ended up enjoying it, loving it, but I only had two, and both of them were the dinosaur kids who watched this movie with me every single time I was there. Okay. But that's kind of how kids work, is like each kid's gonna pick a different thing that, like, that's their thing. And for some kids, it's fucking dinosaurs, man.
Mine was Zuki spooky shit. Actually, alongside dinosaurs too.
Exactly. So,
at the end of it all, Chris, do you recommend watching or rewatching this movie?
I do. I really do. Even if you are an adult and you don't have a kid to watch it with you, I do recommend giving this a rewatch. I don't recommend any of the sequels unless you're an idiot like me. But I do recommend giving this a rewatch because I think you will rediscover some of the lessons and some of the nuances, especially if you're a Don Bluth fan.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. In regards to if you're into this stuff, give it a rewatch. Or if you want to rewatch it for nostalgia or introduce your kid to something that was big to you.
If you're not an animation fan, like my mom.
Mine as well.
If you have to watch it with another, this is a great one to make them watch, to force them to watch. This isn't going to be their cup of tea, though.
No, not at all.
But it's going to miss only because it's animation.
Yeah,
This was a bunch of actors. They would have loved it.
You know what? Disney, you've bastardized everything else. Why not do this, but like how you did Cats?
Why not?
Actually, did Disney do Cats?
I have no idea. I'm going to say no.
Producers of Cats, do this, but like you did Cats.
I'd watch it.
I would too. It'd be a monstrosity.
It would be a monstrosity, but I would watch it.
Same. But, anywho, this has been The Good, the Bad, and the Weird.
Thanks for listening.
Peace! Thank you for stopping by this here town of The Good, the Bad, and the Weird. We appreciate your listenership, and if you want more of our takes in your life, feel free to check us out on social media at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, or TGTBTW for short. As well, if we missed a fact, your favorite part of a movie, or just have a suggestion and want to reach out and say howdy, feel free to email us at tgtbtwpodcast@gmail.com. And feel free to join our Discord at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, where we talk about movies, just share random banter here and there. And always, check out our podcasters, streamers, or any other content creator we shout out in our episodes. We really appreciate it. And as always, thank you for listening. Peace!